Okay. Hi, my name is Noah Garcia, and today I will be refuting Lisa Wong's claim of fact speech, which covered obesity in our society. So her major claim here was that the overconsumption of junk food is the primary cause for obesity in the U.S. The secondary claims that she talked about include number one, which is how junk food is physically addictive, then number two, which talks about portion sizes, which can lead people to obesity. And she doesn't have a third secondary claim, yet she talks about some backing in order for her two secondary claims to be more influential at the end. In the beginning of her speech, she talks about body mass index and explains what it is, but then doesn't restate it later in her claims. Some things that could have been discussed is how to figure out your own body mass index. You can do this by dividing your weight in kilograms by your height in meters, and then you divide the answer by your height again to get your body mass index. So her first secondary claim was how junk food is physically addictive. There were many facts and statistics said about this claim, yet I feel as if she missed a big portion of her speech. There could have been more data and facts on the way that people build an addiction instead of focusing a lot of the time on the case study of rats that were examined. This is because rats don't have a free will to eat whatever they want. They eat whatever is in front of them since they have to survive, and it's different since they eat different types of food. With that said, humans are able to control what they eat usually, and you could eat healthier if you wanted to. Some supporting evidence that she forgot to put in this claim is that many people know that junk food is bringing them down and harming their bodies, but they are unable to control their eating habits for certain reasons. Another thing that could have been brought up is the question on whether fast food is really that much cheaper and more accessible than healthier options. This is because even though it seems like you're paying smaller amounts of money at these fast food chains, it all adds up, and in the end, it would be cheaper to cook at home. So eating in is the best way to eat healthy and save money, and eating in involves careful meal planning, which takes into account healthier nutritional targets and ingredient prices. So for the next secondary claim that she talked about, she discusses the fact that portion sizes affect our overeating habits. She then stated that upgrading to a larger meal could make you spend less money. This statement is true in some instances, since it depends on the type of restaurant that you're attending. There's a lot of evidence here that is left out, and something that's taken into consideration is that the gas stations and fast food restaurants don't care about your health. They just care about how much money they can make. In my opinion, I don't think that this claim works in everyone's bias, since you can help yourself be healthier by scaling back when you visit these restaurants. Some ways that you can scale back and eat healthier at these unhealthy places is by eating half of what you ordered, take it home with you, get a water a cup instead of a large soda, and even eat your food slower and savor it. The speaker didn't have a third secondary claim, and I feel as if there's a lot of information out there that could have been added. For example, some other factors that could play into the causes of obesity in America include genetics, certain medications, and insulin. Genetics can do this because genetic components do affect your susceptibility to gaining weight. Certain medications can also cause weight gain from certain side effects, and the last example is how people with diabetes have to take insulin, and this is a necessary drug that they need in order to survive, and insulin tells fat cells to store fat and to hold on to the fat that they already carry. Another thing that I felt that was left out was that she talked all about obesity in America, but never mentioned anything about the percentage of obesity in America. For example, in 2008, the obesity rate among adult Americans was estimated at 32.2% for men and 35.5% for women, and these rates have only gone up in the past 10 years. So in conclusion, with all this new information stated, I feel as if junk food is a major cause of obesity in America, but also it is a small portion, and there are many other factors that affect people in the process of them gaining weight.
All right, sometimes it sounds like you are making a critique of the speech rather than a refutation of the speech, suggesting how some other argument would have been a better way to develop this, or that the advocate left out some information that might have made their argument stronger, which is not really what your responsibility is. Your responsibility is to show why the argument is inadequate, that they failed to prove their claim, and that in fact the opposite might be true, or that there are reason to disbelieve the claim as it's being presented. On the addictive nature of food, I don't know why I'm getting a definition of body mass index and how to figure it out. Because the advocate, if they make a reference to it, that's fine. Does it come up later in the argument? I don't remember that it's ever referred to again. And why I have to get the formula for figuring out my body mass index in order to listen to the argument that's going on here was not very clear. So that probably could have been dropped. The discussion about the addictive nature of the food, you basically come along and say, well, you can't really trust the rat study, which I think is a good press on that one. That maybe there were problems with the rat study, but that's the kind of press that I think you could have given immediately after the speech. There's no specific research on this subject to suggest any other way of responding to this particular point. And it might have been a good idea to maybe look and see if there is any other evidence on addictive behaviors related to food that could be potentially a response on these issues. Your argument is that humans can make a decision, they can control their issues, but of course the advocate's saying if it's addictive, then how do we control it? Because we have a need or an urgency, our willpower has been defeated by our addiction to the sugar, the fats, or whatever it is that's in those particular foods. So the notion that somehow we can make a conscious decision, say stop eating, which doesn't seem to be the case. If it was as simple as that, we probably wouldn't have the high rates of obesity that you mentioned later in the presentation. Let me see. I don't know, there was another argument right before the second point that I'm just not getting at the moment. On the second point, when you're talking about portions, again, there's an argument about money and how much people are being forced to pay, but it comes down to people can make these decisions for themselves. Here, I think that argument is a little bit more applicable, that people can decide to stop eating at a particular point. They could save food. Those are reasonable suggestions. However, they do seem to assume that there is overconsumption going on, and it's primarily a fast food, which is the premise of the advocate's argument. I think with the end, when you suggest some potential other issues that could explain the nature of our food addictions, and you talk about genetics or medications that we're taking, or insulin dependence, those are some things that might account for people's overconsumption of food, but they're also still related to overconsumption of food. I think that there are other issues about what might make people obese that has little to do with the consumption of fast food, and it might have to do with the way our foods are processed. It might have to do with our inability to engage in particular activities. There are a lot of alternate causality issues here that I think would be more effective. The ones that you pick seem to feed into the notion that it's still the fast food that is the source of this obesity. And then the studies at the end that simply list why people are, or what the percentage of people are who are obese, and you say it's kind of growing. It was confusing because at the end you say, well, it is a major cause, but it's only a small portion, and that's like a self-contradicting position to be taking on this issue. I think it needs to be a little bit clear. You do organize the presentation pretty effectively. You're following the structure that the advocate came up with. I like the press on the rat study. I think it's a good press. I just think that you could use a little bit more information. I like the idea of the alternate causalities, but I'm not sure that you found the most effective alternate causalities on that last point. All right, thank you.